Welcome to So Very Easy. My name is Laura, and winter is here, which makes me think of soft, warm, comfy, and cozy, like a good old-fashioned chenille bedspread. So let's turn some fabric, or a panel, into chenille. And for today's project, we're going to use 4 identical panels, some batting, and some backing. Now this is a really cute winter panel, and it is from Steel Creek Studios. The first thing we need to do is make sure all of the panels are cut the same size. I'm going to have a 1/2 inch all the way around the outside, so everyone is cut the same. Then I need to make a quilt sandwich. You're going to do this like you do any other quilt. You have your back fabric, you have your batting, and you have your quilt top. Now to save some time, I'm going to use a fusible batting. And this is Fusiboo from Fairfield. What's great is I can iron the 3 pieces together and they're going to stick. So I don't have to do any basting on that at all. The next is to decide how we're going to chenille the panel. So let's cover the concept on how chenilling fabric works. You have your quilt. You need to run stitching lines to make channels, and the channels must go on an angle. You cannot put the channels going with the grain of the fabric. There's many different ways that you can do your channels. You can sew your channels going in this direction. You can sew some going in one direction and then coming in another. And the way I'm going to do this particular panel is I'm going to do a big X in the center, and then I'm going to have the channels coming out from each corner. Now what the channels are rows of stitching, and you need to keep them the same width apart. Anywhere between a 1/4 inch and a 1/2 inch works good. I will be doing a 1/2 inch. And the reason I'm going to do the 1/2 inch is because the measurement from the middle of the foot to the edge of the foot happens to be a 1/2 inch. So I will not have to mark the entire quilt. I'm going to be able to use my foot. Now if you have a walking foot, this is really great to use. So once you have decided what design that you want to do on the quilt top, you can mark the quilt top. And you only need to mark one quilt top. So I'm going to draw my marks going from one corner right down to the next and going in this direction. Then you need to pin all of these layers together. Because they've been cut the same size, they're going to match up really good. You want to try to have everything matched up as close as you can. They don't have to be exact, but close is great. So you might want to find some areas where you can mark and put a pin through all of the layers so that you have them all even. And I'll be able to tell that I'm going straight because my edges are all going to match. I also have my batting and my backing at least 2 to 3 inches off of the edge. So I have pin basted all the layers together. My lines have been marked. Now I'm going to be able to take this to the machine and quilt it. I'm going to use a variegated thread from Quilts, and it is color 813. It's got all the colors in it, and I'm going to put it on the bobbin and in the top of the machine. And because you're going through a lot of layers, I would recommend a 90-14, and you can use a quilting needle for this. So the first 2 lines I'm going to do are the big cross sections. So I will have one big X from corner to corner. So I'm going to follow the edge of the foot to the edge of my first row of stitching, and I'm going to stitch all the way down, of course removing my pins. And when I get to that line of stitching, I'm going to follow that line of stitching to a 1/2 inch. Then I'm going to turn the quilt around, and I'm going to follow that edge of stitching that I just did on that foot and go back down. So what I will be doing is going up, over, down. Start at the bottom, go up, over, down. So at this end, as you're coming along here, you're just going to be able to stop, and you can either end it or you can travel down and go back up. So you are just going to be doing this long sort of zigzag back and forth, all the way until you get right to that end. So this line here is that first X I made. These are the rows of stitching, or the channels that I'm making. I'm following the edge of my foot along the last row of stitching. And I'm going to come right here and stop. I'm going to turn the quilt so that I can stitch right along that line. And what I want to do is stitch and then go back down, but I need that space. And in order to get that space without measuring every single time, count your stitches. Mine happens to be 5 stitches. So I'll do 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Stop. I turn my quilt and you see how my line is right there with the edge of that foot. So 5 stitches is in between each of those channels. Now yours might be 4 stitches, 6 stitches. You just need to count and you'll know exactly how many it is. So I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to stitch, and that's going towards the bottom. And just follow that line with the edge of your foot. So I've done no measuring at all. And when I get to the bottom, do you see how I've come back? So I'm going to hit that edge, stop, pivot the quilt, and I already know I need 5 stitches. So I've done 5 stitches. Now I'm going to turn the quilt and come back up. My 5 stitches now means the edge of my foot is along that stitching line. And stitch. So all of those channels have been done, and I did not draw any lines. It was all because of counting the number of stitches as I turned. Now I can do another section. So from this design to this design, there's nothing saying you just can't do it straight. Any way you do your channels is fine. Now we will need to clean up those edges and square it up. We need to have each channel open because we will need to cut through the first 3 layers. So if we look really close, we have 1, 2, 3 top layers, the bottom layer, and this is the layer that was fused onto that batting. The batting and the back. So now we need to just take a pair of scissors and just start and put a little snip all the way between each one of those channels. Now once those channels have all been snipped, and you don't need to cut them all the way, you just need to snip them to get a starting point. You need to bind it. The reason you need to bind it is you need to secure all of these loose ends. Take your favorite method of binding and bind the entire quilt. Once it's bound, you're going to finish cutting it. And when the binding's on, all of those ends are going to be secured. Now you can finish cutting those channels. There are a couple of ways you can cut them. You can put your scissors right in and cut between the layers, or you can get a chenille cutter. Now a chenille cutter has a rotary blade inside. It's all enclosed. You might be able to see a little bit of it right there in that end. And it does not move. That blade is stationary. You need to first of all choose the size of the foot, and that is a little foot that is going to slide in between those channels. So if you've done a very, very narrow channel, you're going to be able to use that very small foot. And you're going to be able to use whatever size fits your channel the best. So I have turned this knob until the blade is exposed in that large area where that foot is. Now I'm going to be able to just take that foot and slide it in between my layers and just push. And it is very easy. Because I already have these little snips started, I'm going to be able to just slide it into those layers, and it very easily pushes. And it's going to cut those 3 layers in a nice straight row all the way down. And it really is this easy. This protects that you do not cut the bottom layer, and the blade cuts the 3 layers perfectly. That little foot is also a safety, so you can't go too far. But depending on the design that you have, you might need to snip a little bit closer to the seam. So you might just need to finish it off with a pair of scissors. But be careful you don't cut into that thread. All those channels have been cut through the top 3 layers. Now I get to put this in the wash machine. And you can already see with the first wash how well it is fluffing up. Now you can speed up the fluffing by brushing it. And you can buy a chenille brush. Since I don't have one, I'm using a hairbrush. Now this is still wet. And I'm just going to give it a brush. Now as I throw it in the dryer, it's going to speed up that fluffing. And after it's been dried, it chenilles even more. And the more you wash it and dry it, the softer it's going to become, and it's going to bloom even more. Now this is a great idea to use children's panels because it is nice and soft. And it also looks great with 4 different fabrics because all of the colors start to show through. Now you can always do those channels any direction you want as long as they are on a 45-degree angle, and that way they will bloom. It's a fun and quick project to make. The chenille cutter definitely makes it go really quick. And it's done. It's fast and easy, and it's nice and comfy. Perfect for the winter. Thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back. Let's see what we're sewing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.